Welcome to the Gene Scoring Initiative of Safari. This collaborative initiative was recently started by the Simons Foundation with the goal of creating a method for evaluation of the strength of the evidence linking individual genes to autism. The gene scoring process follows a set of standardized annotation rules that were developed by an expert panel of advisors. One of the goals of this initiative from the outset was to allow participation by the research community in this gene scoring process. To realize this goal, we are incorporating a community-based ranking component into the gene scoring module, which will also allow individuals to make and download their own personalized, ranked gene lists. To provide an introduction to new users that may be unfamiliar with the gene scoring module, we have created a short tutorial on the process. This second part of the tutorial details the gene scoring process, as well as provides some examples of gene scoring. Now let's talk about the gene scoring process. There are 7 categories in which a gene can be classified. These range from Category 1, which is the highest confidence category, all the way through to Category 6, for which there is no support for a link for that gene to autism. A special category, Category S, exists as a separate classification for genes linked to autism in the context of a syndromic disorder, such as Fragile X syndrome. If a syndromic gene also has additional evidence linking it to autism, it will have a category number in front of the S that indicates the strength of that evidence, as I'll describe in a second. For example, 3S indicates that that gene should be listed both in Category S as well as Category 3. In order for a gene to fall into one of the highest confidence categories, significant evidence must exist from a rigorous case control, family-based, or genome-wide study. In order to gain entry into Category 1, some form of independent replication of the finding must ultimately also exist. Genes in Categories 3 and 4 must still have at least one piece of evidence linking them to autism, although that evidence is not as rigorous or convincing as required by Categories 1 and 2. For example, Category 3 and 4 evidence might involve rare mutations with a lack of statistical comparison or data concerning gene expression or function that links the gene to autism. Finally, Category 5 exists for genes with only hypothetical but untested links to autism. And Category 6 exists for genes with evidence that argues against a role in autism. Let's take a look at some gene scoring examples. We should always remember that in order to properly score a gene, we must take into account all of the currently available data that links that gene to autism. For this reason, a gene's score can change as new findings emerge. In our first example, let's say we have a gene in which multiple studies have found rare mutations in individual patients with autism. Based on just this evidence, the gene could fall into Categories 1.0, 2.1, or 4.4. By delving into the evidence further, however, we find that none of the studies provide rigorous statistical comparisons with controls. Because of this, the gene can now only fall into Category 4.4. Luckily for this gene, however, a study also exists that shows a lowered expression level of this gene in the brains of autistic patients. This accessory evidence now boosts the gene to Category 3.1. In our final example, let's consider a common variant that has been found in one study to be significantly associated with autism with no other significant evidence. Based only on this, the gene would fall into Category 4.3. However, several follow-up studies exist that replicated this positive association, including one meta-analysis. This combined evidence now boosts the gene to Category 2.3. Unfortunately, because none of the studies showed genome-wide significance for the variant, it cannot be elevated to Category 1, however. This concludes the gene scoring tutorial. Please also take a look at the first part of the tutorial if you haven't done so already. We welcome you to score as few or as many genes as you would like, and hope that you will find this resource useful to your ongoing valuable research. As always, we encourage your feedback and thank you in advance for helping to build what we feel is an important resource for the autism research community.